Hi, Betty. Hi, Airdrie.
Hello.
Hi, Eric. Just the two of us and you?
Well, for right at the moment, yeah, a lot of people scoot in at the last second, but we have 3 minutes left.
Okay.
So it'll be a good meeting anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always amazing how you show us things, and I thought, wow, that was just like so easy, but I've never, all the years I've been using Photoshop, I never knew that.
There are a ton of new features too, and I've talked about the remove tool before. I'm going to talk about it again tonight because they've done even more with it. Just last week, the new release. So by the way, if you don't have automatic updates turned on, you should, because they're updating Photoshop every week now.
Wow. Where do you find that? Up at the top of the screen
Yeah,
menu bar?
uh,
Top?
it's under help probably.
I think so, yeah. I used
Yeah,
to remember all that stuff.
I can peek at it once I'm sharing my screen and we're
Oh, you know what I want to ask you? When you have an image open and you want to add another image to it, so you have two images and you want to overlap one over the other,
yep.
what's the command?
There's no command. And so you open them both up in Photoshop and they'll come up in little bars at the top
Right?
next to each other. And then all you do is you take your mouse and you go up and you click and don't let go of the one that you want to add into the other one. So you open up the base image
Uh-huh.
that you want to end up with. You go up to the other one that's just a bar up there and it's grayed out right
Right?
now. And you click on it and you just drag it down on top of the other one.
Okay.
Now,
Because
does it?
I tried it a couple of times and I thought, what the heck am I doing wrong? And my
Yeah,
mind went blank and I was
yeah.
like, it can't be that hard. I've been doing it for years. So
It just overlaps them at that point. And
yeah,
then you have to make a selection like to knock out the background
right, right.
of
Yeah.
that one or whatever. And then you drag that one into the new one. I can show you real quick if we have time.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, this is crazy.
Yeah.
You know, when you do something a lot and then you go to do it again, and it doesn't work, and you're like, what am I doing wrong?
Well, that's the other part. I started with Photoshop when it was Photoshop 1. So I learned
Me
how to,
too.
and I learned how to do a lot of things the hard way. And they have retooled it and made it so much easier to do things. But now you have to know how to do it the easy way.
Although, have you ever tried Photoshop on the iPad?
Not yet, no.
It's ugly.
Uh, yeah, I've heard a lot of, or I've seen a lot of comments about it not being ready for prime time, but uh,
Well,
I,
I'm trying to travel with just an iPad instead of my way too
yeah,
heavy laptop.
right.
But what you need to do is download Lightroom, which is more like real Photoshop.
Okay.
So
Lightroom Classic.
Lightroom for mobile or whatever
Oh,
goes.
okay.
You know, the
Yeah, yeah,
iPad doesn't do bridge, it doesn't do whatever.
right, right. Okay. Well, it is 7:30 and we now have five because Airdrie went and nudged Richard and said, we need another person. Hi, Richard.
Hello there, Eric. How you doing tonight?
I'm well. So I'm going to share my screen and Betty, I'll show you what I'm talking about very quickly. So I'm going to share and actually, uh, we'll see if it'll let me because I have a bunch of stuff open that I wanted to show you guys.
Well,
So,
don't get all screwed up just because you can do that at the end.
oh no, it let me. It let me. So I'm going to show you something else first. So this is something that go back to the recording tomorrow or whenever you have time. And this is something everyone should do is that, and this is new as well. So you're looking at, if you're a Lightroom person, you're looking at develop module. If you're a Photoshop person, this is Camera Raw, but they're essentially, we're not exactly the same, but they're very similar. But what they've done, and it's not ready for Lightroom, by the way, it's only in Photoshop. So I'm in Camera Raw 17.2, it says up here. And you see this little settings wheel? Go to that settings wheel and by the way, this is Adobe Camera Raw, but all I did was open up a raw image from my camera and it opened up. And when it did that, it opens it up in Camera Raw or in Lightroom, if that's the way you have it set up. If you're in Lightroom, you're not going to be able to have this feature yet, but it'll be there eventually. Anyway, this little settings uh, gear, click on that, and then it's going to open up several different things. And most of these are just presets that you've already taken care of. But if you haven't, this is technology previews, check this box, new AI features and settings panel. And this will allow, this talks about enabling AI features like generative expand, reflection removal, denoise, and other edit features. All of these things are available in some degree right now, but what this does, it gives you the latest and greatest versions of those tools. So higher resolution, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just something to do when you have a moment. So I'm going to say, okay, and get out of here. And that's the only reason I had this open. So I'll cancel this. And Betty, here's your answer.
Okay.
So Betty had asked, how do I get two images to work together and combine them into a single image? So this is my main image. This is my daughter and my granddaughter, but that's not her mother. That's my youngest daughter. But these two are goofing off. And then I'm going to take this other picture, which is now grayed out. I'm going to click on it, Betty.
Huh?
And then I'm dragging it down here. And I'm going to let go. Okay, so that gives me a separate image that is adjacent to this one. Then what I need to do is, this is highlighted, right? This is great. My daughter's grayed out now. This one's the one that's active, the active screen. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say select subject, and let's see what it finds for. I haven't tried this, so I don't know what it's going to find as a subject, but look at that. It found all the people, which is what it's supposed to do. And I'm going to just add the foot for this guy just because, whoops. Okay. Oh, I was on the wrong tool. I'm going to add this guy's foot just for the heck of it. So this is the quick selection tool. Okay. Oh, and he's missing feet too. Anyhow, everybody's got feet now. And then what you do is you take the move tool up here in the upper, mine's at the top, yours is probably at the top too. And then you come back and you're going to click on these people and look, you can move them. And I moved them to the other image. Now, this is not the good example of,
That's okay. Yeah, I can see it. It's easily seen.
and then you go back and you turn this one off and you say no. And now I have this as a separate layer and I can put these people wherever I want them
Okay.
or whatever the object is. All right. So that made a new layer. So I'm going to dump that layer and turn it off.
Good. Okay. I must I must have unclicked or something. But anyway, I never get enough images to open.
Yeah. So it's a much easier path than it used to be, but if you're not familiar with it, it takes a minute.
So you just click it with the move with your cursor in the move
Cursor
tool.
in the move tool, click on it and hold it and drag it into the other image.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I figured it was simple, but I thought, what am I doing?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, so now I was saying that they've made a lot of updates and they will continue to make updates to this remove tool. So this remove tool is a pretty great thing. And I'm going to show you something very simple just to start with. And if you haven't used this remove tool, spend some time and use it. People like Anar that take lots of bird photos, you will find this very valuable. That's the good news. It's very easy to use and does a great job. So I'm going to just take this highlighted weed back here. And now what they've done is you used to circle it and then you had to fill it in. You don't have to do that anymore. You just let go and it creates this little fill in. And now it's going to remove that area. But not only is it going to remove it, going to replace it with something. So that highlighted weed back there is now much more subtle.
But
And
not allowed in nature, Eric.
right, exactly. That's what I was going to get to, was that you're going to love these tools. Anybody that takes birds, but it's also considered AI, so it's not allowed in competitions.
Good for Instagram.
Yeah, good for Instagram, good for exhibits, good for anything you want except competition. Okay, so now I'm going to show you something that's its basic function is it removed that and replaced it with something else, which is kind of great. So up here, if you notice in mode, so first it's under find distractions, and under find distractions, you could be people, wires and cables. That's if you click on those things, it'll look for people and remove them from the image. I don't want to do that, but just leave find distractions where it is. And then you have some choices over here. You can use automatic, which may or may not use generative AI to remove something. Generative AI on or off. So in the way I'm going to use it, I want it on. And the reason being is we're going to do something. And by the way, I've tested this like 3 times and it's different every time. So we'll see what happens. And here is, I'm going to draw around my daughter with her tongue sticking out. Gonna let go. And we're going to see what it does. Look at that. Not only did it decide, it made an expression. It created this expression for her, which still works with the photograph, amazingly enough, right? It doesn't look wrong.
That's pretty true. You're right.
Oh, shut up.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So this remove tool, like I said, it seemed like at least once a month they're adding or improving on it. Here's another thing. I'm going to zoom this out so you can see is that the resolution pretty much matches the original image. So originally when this tool came out, it was only low resolution. And now, interestingly enough, though, look, now she's got some pretty funky teeth, and I paid a lot of money for those braces. I know they don't look like that. I could probably draw it again. Let's do that just for fun. And let's see what it does this time. Oh, a little better. Now she's got beaver teeth, but anyhow, bottom line is it's excellent for helping out with not only removing, but making assumptions about it and creating something new. I'm gonna try down, I'm gonna go down here to the Minnie Mouse logo on my granddaughter's sweatshirt. And I have no idea what it's gonna do, so let's find out. Yeah, so it noticed that there were words or letters on there, so it tried to repeat that. So the old Control Z gets rid of all that. Or Command Z, depending on your Mac or a PC. All right, so that's some updates that they've done on the remove tool. So if you were in the last meeting, you'll know that that we spent some time talking about content credentials and knowing if something is AI or not, or if it's been edited. And so Adobe did not have anything that was available that you could go out and add to your files, and now they have done that. So how do we figure that out? So we go to Window, and you go to Content Credentials. And it's in beta right now, as you can see. And I click on that, and it says, do you want to enable content credentials? And I'll say yes. And it automatically knows who the producer is, who's me. And it looks around if I'm connected to any other account. So in other words, at work, I sometimes collaborate with my clients. So they can look at their Photoshop and I can bring up mine and they can draw a remove tool, let's say, around part of the image and see what it does, and we can all see it together. So this is saying it's not connected to any accounts, but if you wanted to, you could to someone else. And it also will show edits and activity. So what does that look like? You click the preview button and it says it's produced by me. And then actions. It says that I imported it, I opened it. It doesn't know what edits or activities I've made yet. And it shows the layers that I've worked with. And it shows that I'm in Photoshop. And it's all owned by Adobe. The reason it doesn't know what edits or activity in detail is because I haven't saved this image yet. I've just been playing with it while we've been looking at it. But if you want to start doing that so that it shows a path on your images, then you can do that. Right now, of course, it's completely voluntary, which means the bad guys are not going to be doing this, but the good guys will start doing it, and it'll make it your image a little safer across the internet. So explore that at some point when you get a chance, but that's something new that just happened last week. Okay. All right. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. And how many people here have used the uh, generative expand tool? Mercury, have you used it?
Not.
No. Betty, no, I assume.
What is it?
Generative expand.
No, I'm not that
Okay.
whizzy good.
Jim Lamb may have. Have you used it yet, Jim?
Uh, Actually, not yet.
Okay. Well, I'm going to demonstrate it one more time. And I think, Chris, chime in here. I think you may have used it, huh?
Not in any, well,
Maybe.
just haphazardly, just experimentally.
All right. Well, I'm going to show you something that could be important. And so there's a gray area on this as far as AI or not, and I'll tell you why, and let me do it first. So you click the crop button, and the crop button now comes with these, but when you pull on those, let's say I want to balance the amount of background on both sides. That's all I want to do. I come down to the bottom, and by the way, this toolbar has to be open. So window, and it is called contextual taskbar. And it's clicked, it's checked, so it's on. So if you don't see this, that's where it is. You have to come back and check it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to hit generative expand. And I could type something in there. I could type in wildebeest herd if I wanted to, and it would try to figure out a way to put a wildebeest herd in that expanded area. But if I say nothing, it's going to look at the overall image and it's going to increase that. So I'll make it a little larger here as soon as it lets me. So notice what it did. It just added, that's where I expanded it from. And it just took my image, duplicated pixels that were already in my image, duplicated them, filled them in, and created this. So why is this a gray area? This is a gray area in AI and whether or not you can use it in competitions. And right now it's not, you cannot use it, but why it's a gray area is because it's using my own pixels. I didn't tell it to put in wildebeest, right? I just said, take my image, generate more of the background so I have a little bit more. And everybody here has been in a situation where something's been jammed right up to the edge of the photograph and you wish you just had another quarter of an inch, and you can do that. So there will be great debates about whether or not that is allowed or not allowed in competitions.
So
And
even if you did that, grab the sides of the crop tool and had that vacant white area, couldn't you take your stamp, clone stamp, and fill it in that way?
you could, and that would not be allowed either.
Oh, really? Okay.
Only in
Not,
creative or monochrome or color, not in any of the other
Right.
categories.
Yeah.
So if this was journalism per se, it would not be allowed.
Okay, but you can do it in
In
other.
those other categories, correct? Yeah.
and whether you could use the generative expand in color, monochrome, or creative, it's kind of based on the pixels in your image. So that's the gray area there, I think.
Right. You can do, well, yeah. So I think generative expand will be allowed for those categories. I believe it will be allowed. Don't quote me because this is a board thing, but I believe that may be allowed. However, if you typed in a prompt to
Like
that generative
wildebeest.
expand, yeah, my wildebeest. Let's just for fun, let's go backwards and let's do that. So I'm going to throw away that layer. And I am going to go back in my history panel, by the way. If you don't keep your history panel turned on, you certainly should. And let's go back here. Okay, that's where I was. Then I go to the crop tool. And I want a lot of wildebeest, so I'm going to give it a little more space here. And then I'm going to say, it says, what would you like to generate down here? And I'm going to say wildebeest. Did I spell it correctly?
Looks like.
Okay. Uwe, do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to say wildebeest herd. And I'm going to say generate. So theoretically, not only is it gonna go out and find wildebeests and put them in there, but it's also gonna blend it with my existing image somehow. We shall see.
Camera.
Well, that's not a herd. However,
Heard of one.
here's, yeah, I heard of one.
But
The
it's making
great thing
what new
about
fancy
it,
stuff can be done in Photoshop.
the great thing that happened, and just this is all new, by the way. The resolution is outstanding and matches my images, might even be slightly better than my image. So that's what has taken place. And it blended it perfectly together.
I don't know.
That's
Uh,
quite amazing, actually.
I'm sorry, what?
It's quite amazing, actually.
It is quite amazing. And it's going to change the game. In the magazine this month, there's an article about, it's called computational photography. And that is photography, edits and changes that happen in camera, but which is sort of okay, but it's sort of all AI anyway. So we're going to have a problem with that. So now this is only the
Oh.
first of 3 images, by the way. Every time you click on generate, it makes 3 images. So down here, there's a little advanced bar. So here's the second one. There's my herd. And here's the third. So anyway, it looks like the second one comes closest to what I was looking for if I wanted a herd. And but now here's something interesting about this is that I'm gonna blow this up and it is going to show me that I've got some kind of strange softness back in here that does not match the softness of my original image. So if I was a perfectionist, which I am, I would have to clone that and fix that.
Eric, back to your original thing that you did, which was just generative fill without entering anything, and so it just gave some space to the side of the photo.
Yep.
Wouldn't that be essentially under the same category as adding a moon, or like you can add clouds in the sky or change the sky, and those things would all be allowed in color or monochrome or creative?
I think that, yes, that's true because it's using your pixels in your image as the base to work from. If, like you said, you have not put in a prompt. All you
Well,
did
but like if you add a cloud, then you can do that with tools in Photoshop, right? And that's not in your photo.
If
That's
it's a
really
cloud
added.
you photographed.
it
Oh,
has,
it has to be a cloud you photographed. Okay.
exactly. As long as you photographed whatever it was, because I put moons in lots of things all the time.
Okay. Okay.
But as long as it's your photograph,
Yeah.
and as long as you're not in one of the story categories, which is journalism, help me out here.
Nature and travel.
There you go.
Travel.
As long as it's not one of those, then you're okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back here and let's do something. I only have 5 minutes left, but I'll go do something. I'm going to crop this back to where it was originally. And then I'm going to go do here and I'm going to do generative expand. But what I'm going to do is ask for something that makes a little more sense. And well, actually, let's do it without. Let's just say generative expand and see what it comes up with. Because with that much area to work with, it might say, I need to fill in something. I need to put some chairs or something. I don't know. Let's find out what it says. Yeah, put a bluebird in there. Did a nice job extending that wall, working the background. It looks like it's a little bird or something. It's kind of fuzzy. So that would not be allowed. But if you were crop it once again, then you're okay. Let's go back and do Control Z. And let's do, this is going to be my last one, and then we're going to move off of this topic. So I'm going to put in a prompt here. So I'm going to do flower garden. And then I'm going to say generate.
Mm.
Now remember, it gives you 3. So I'll go over here and here's number 2. And here's number 3. Not perfect, a little unreal looking, but useful. If I was an editor at a magazine and I was doing Better Homes and Gardens and I needed family and flowers was my theme, I could generate something like this and it might be useful. All right. So let's move away from this and let's go to my, I'll close my other image. Oh, by the way, if you, everybody look up to the upper left of my screen here, do you see my file name now? See in front of it says CR, and that is content credentials. It's CR is, I guess, credentials. So that means that there are credentials added to this image. So if I save it, I'm going to file save as, because I don't want to mess up my original image. And I'm going to call it flowers. Okay. So whenever you open up an image in the future, that CR will be there if you have credentials. And if you open up an image that has CR on it, then you'll know that somebody owns that and there should be information in there. And it takes a little longer to save it, by the way, with credentials, because I don't know if it's hitting Adobe servers. It probably is. If you look at the bottom, it's taking a long time to save this. Because typically an image like this would save in a couple seconds on this system anyway. Okay, it is now saved. All right, so I'll use the same image, and all I want to do here is I want to create some selections in order to do something different. So the selection tools are varied. There are a lot of them in Photoshop, and I just want to show a few of them. So first of all, you could crop it, which would change your selection. Or I could take this tool over here, the polygon lasso tool, and I can create a selection. So coming down here, and I'm going to select all of these tulips, and I'm going to delete them. Okay, sorry. Since this is a generated image, I need to merge these layers. And now I can I can delete it, and now I've got this edge here. So selections are merely a way to enhance an image. And by doing that, here's a way to do that. So I'm going to crop this image with a marquee selection tool, which is that rectangular tool, the dancing ants up there. And you can see that I've got some blank images. I could use my remove tool if I wanted to, and I could upsize it. I could use my remove tool, and guess what? It wouldn't really remove it. It's gonna, theoretically, it's gonna add to that. See what it does. Boy, those content credentials really have slowed my system down. That's interesting. So anyway, anyone that's used the various fill tools that are available, you don't even need those anymore. As a matter of fact, I rarely use them unless this remove tool fails to add to my image. So you will end up loving this remove tool as I do. So we'll see. Interesting that it doesn't fill out the whole thing. I've not noticed that before, but maybe it's because it's a blank area. Okay, it's not happy with that. So I'll show you a different way to do some of this. So make sure your feather is set to 0. This is the marquee tool, rectangular marquee. And I am going to take this whole area here, and I'm going to do Command or Control T. I had it locked, so I may need to unlock it, so I just did. And I'm going to do Control T. Okay, it doesn't like that for some reason. Let me try it again. Control T. There you go. So I can take Control T, and instead of cloning this, instead of having it fill in with the remove tool or the content aware tool or something like that, I can simply take this and grab this right-hand side. Whoops. And I have to hit the shift button so that it will only go sideways and not make the whole thing bigger. And that's a way to use a selection. And you can see that it blurred it heavily. So you'd have to go back there and blur this edge in order to make it perfect. But it's a very quick way to do things like that in selections. Other type of selections, elliptical marquee tool. So you can take this and I can, let's say I wanted to put a picture of grandma in here looking over these two. I'm not going to do it, but I'm just going to tell you a few ways you could do it. The first thing you could do is you have a selection area and you could, excuse me, you could take that selection area and you could fill it, edit, fill, in this case, the background color, which is white. And now I could stick grandma in there fairly seamlessly. But what I want to do is I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to do it layer via cut. And when I layer via cut, what it's going to do is it's going to make a hole. See those gray squares in there? There's no pixels in there. So then I could take, well, I'll do it. I'll go back to the original image here, and I'll take Olivia here. And I need to make it bigger than the shape that I'm going to put it into. And I'll do layer via copy. And now I've got Olivia copied on one of my layers. And what I can do is I can take that layer, which she's there. I can move her up there. But right now she's blocking the image and I want her to be behind it. So I will take the layers to the right here and I'll drag it down. And now she's behind it. And let's just pretend that's grandma looking down at the other two. So selection tools can do all kinds of things. The other things that it can do is I'm going to go back in time here. And okay. The other thing it can do is I can take and do select subject. And it should give me the two people. Okay. So there's a little bit extra. So I need to go to my quick selection tool. I'll click on that. Give myself a bigger brush to work with. And hardness usually doesn't matter much, by the way. I wouldn't worry about that. But let's select these areas that it did not select. And it did not select her shoe and part of her sweater. So now what I'm going to do is, remember this blurry issue here? There's a border here or an edge. I can go into select inverse. So the people are no longer selected, only the background selected. Or you could do select background and then go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, which is the most often used blur tool, by the way. And I'll kick that up to about 9. Not enough. 48, that's a lot. I'm just trying to get those areas in the back to blend so it's not really noticeable. And you can say, okay. And now you've softened that background. And just one of many different selection tools that you can use for things. All right. Oh, the other thing you could do is let's do Control Z to give me my, this is just the background once again. So now I could do adjustments. So image adjustments. And let's go with just something simple, brightness and contrast. I can make it a lot brighter back there if I wanted to. I can make it black practically if I wanted to. I could change the contrast, make it more or less contrasty. And by the way, if you're working with smoke anytime in a photograph, your contrast can help you usually by reducing the amount of contrast, and that'll make the smoke look better, by the way. Okay. So that's a little bit more on selections. So now this last part of the meeting, I want to talk about AI or not AI, and how that fits into the future of photography. And I'm going to close this. I'm not going to save any of the changes. And I am going to stop sharing if it lets me. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. So this is chance for everybody to throw in their opinion, because about 6 months ago, I was going to write an article about what's AI and how it can work in our club and how it can't work in our club. And the intention was that it would create some clearer guidelines for us. But as I looked deeper and deeper into it, I found that it's really tough to tell what AI should be allowed and what shouldn't be. So this is just a chance for us to discuss it a little bit. And almost everybody has some opinion on it, so please.
Hungry, do you think? Are you sleeping?
So here's something that's been initiated in Sony cameras initially. Nikon's got it. Most cameras now have eye tracking. Is eye tracking, is that AI? Well, yes, it is AI. I'll answer that part. But is that allowed in our photographs?
Better be.
Yeah, especially for people that take birds in flight and things like that.
There was eye tracking in a Canon
Yep.
years ago,
Yep.
and then it disappeared because I had it in my camera
Right.
a long, long time ago.
That's true. And they may have gotten rid of it because it wasn't perfected, but Sony was able to perfect it. So when they finally got it going, I think they made the big difference. But it's really an interesting question, because we kind of, well, at least I used to think of myself as a purist photographer originally, but all that has changed because there's so much going on in the camera that it's hard to say where AI starts and stops. How about auto scene selections, landscapes, and all the other scene selections, or just automatic, turning your camera on automatic? Is that AI or not AI?
Well, see, there you go. I think it's just your camera is a computer, and at whatever point we went away from manual focus, manual exposure,
Yep.
we are just taking the same. This is just extensions of the same path.
Right, exactly. So the further we go down the AI line, the more that line is blurred between what's allowed and what isn't allowed anymore.
Well, we can do so much in each image that replace the sky, like the dark shadows, open up this, clone down that, clone out that, get rid of the ghosting. So we're doing it individually or on step by step, or you can just do it with AI and it'll do it all for you, kind of a thing. So even if it's a photojournalism, I mean, you're taking the picture and you're cropping it and you're lightening it a little bit so you can see what's going on. You're not really changing the image, but you're helping it, you're improving it.
Right.
So we're not going to be purists anymore. You can change everything as well as put wildebeests into your image. So
That's
there
right.
you go.
That's right. But I'll bet you that for the story categories, so journalism, travel, and nature, I'll bet that most people in our club would say AI is not allowed in those categories. But guess what? We've been using it for years in that category. It's just what degree?
Well, we got to get Mercury out of the club because he puts all these panthers and river otters and everything into his grass and water pictures. So we got to
Right.
make sure that we keep Mercury under control.
Well, I could say the same about Susan Dinga,
That's right.
Honora Kelly.
Well, So it just is a blurring of things, you know, when cloning came out that was, oh, can't do that. And then, but things were never said about things like eye tracking, right? But that is so AI, a very sophisticated AI, but because it's done in camera rather than in post, uh, it's
Eric, here's one that bothers me, and it seems like it's a really obvious example, and that is, and Jeffrey Pollen got involved with this, having to do with, I don't know, NC4 rules or whatever in nature. But like, if you have the $13,000 600 millimeter f4, you're going to blur the background more than an aperture that doesn't close as much.
right.
But it's pretty simple now with background to just soften the background a little bit and have and when you're all done, if you can't tell the difference between the two, it's like, where's the crime? And I think ultimately that's what the computer can do and what Lightroom is doing.
Yeah.
And God, to me, it just seems like it's totally fair.
Yeah, it's one of those things blurring the background that may eventually be okay, even in the stored categories, because you could do it in camera. So it's, I don't know, that's going to be a lot of discussions coming up. And that brings us back around to generative expand one more time. And generative expand, it's using your own pixels, and it's been you're dragging your own pixels into that new area. It's generating it, but it's not taking someone else's image, it's taking your image. So
We've done that. We've done that with cloning. I mean, the one with your daughter sitting there right next to the edge.
yeah,
So I would have just expanded the left-hand side
yeah,
and then gone to the right-hand side and used all the grass on the right-hand side to fill in the blank area on the left-hand side. So I've been using my own pixels and I've been
right,
using what's already in the image. So
yeah,
it was either generative fill or I did it manually.
right, right. So it's still okay in the three, uh, let's call them creative categories of color, monochrome, and creative. It's still okay to be able to use it there, but it's not in the other categories, and that's where push is coming to shove on things here. The last thing I want to talk about, and then anybody jump in with questions or anything we covered tonight or whatever you want to talk about, but is Firefly. So some of you may not be familiar with Firefly. Has anyone tried Firefly? I've demonstrated it here a couple of times, but has anyone tried it?
What is it?
So it's a piece of software that Adobe has created, and its biggest user is probably going to be magazine publication. So let's go back to that Better Homes and Gardens example. And you can go to Firefly and it'll give you a dialog box. And that's, you just go to adobe.com and go to Firefly. Or if you have an Adobe subscription, we all do. I'm not sure it's included with the photography one because I have the Creative Cloud. I've got a bunch of different stuff. So it's included with mine. But anyway, I go to open up Firefly and it just gives me a command box and says, what do you want to do? And all I need to do is say, create an 8 by 8 wide by 10 high image of a horse and a red barn in a field in winter. And then I click the button and it will create that. That's completely AI. And what it's doing is you can choose photographic, realistic image, or you can choose illustrative. And it'll render that in either one of those modes. So Firefly is something to go in and just play with. If it's not part of your subscription, you can go to adobe.com. and you can try it. They give you like 5 images to try for free or something. And if you have a subscription and it's covered in your subscription, then you get like 50 a month or something, some number like that.
That's great. So if I don't travel anymore, I can just say I want to,
Right.
yeah, I want to go to China and I want to go and look at this and that. And they can build me a picture.
That's right. Who needs photographers anymore? They can do it right there. Okay. Anything else anyone has questions about or would like me to cover?
I had posted two things on um, the chat area, and you didn't see them.
Nope, because I was busy talking. Okay, can we talk more about the remove tool? Yes, we can. And
Let me tell you what I've experienced.
okay,
I was working on a color image, not intending to enter it into any of the hard to find PSA categories.
right, right.
And it was basically, you might say, it had the sort of look of a travel image in that it was a very nice landscape that also contained a building from a location that I visited.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, there were, for some strange reason, the people there had put in some vertical metal poles, and only one of them had a wire attached to it, which that remove wire did work.
Yeah.
But the poles, I had the real darndest time using the remove tool to remove the poles. And it kept trying. I tried automatic, and I also tried with and without AI.
Okay.
And I had to ultimately try different line widths, not line widths, cursor widths, dot widths,
Tool size, yeah.
tool size. And it removed some parts and not others. And some of the parts, it actually, I'm not kidding you, the remove tool replaced the pole with another pole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it was really, really annoying.
Right. And that's where exactly what you're saying is choosing auto or generate or not generate.
And the not generate worked better than the generate, but it still did it. It still did it in the not generate.
Yeah. And that's where I mentioned that one of the limitations is exactly what you're saying, Jeffrey, is that sometimes you're going to get a false image or you're going to get something that you just don't want. And because of that, you're going to have to do it the old fashioned way. You're going to have to clone it, or you're going to have to,
Yes.
Go a different way to create what you need. But I love this tool because it will take 80% of the work away that I used to have to do. I've been using this too long, and it used to take forever to do a lot of these things.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that Adobe has not made clear is that in the remove tool, they not only have in the top, in the tool section, once you select remove tool, it leaves both the plus and the minus,
Yep.
but it doesn't say what the minus does. And furthermore, I wish that it had the ability when you're changing the tool size that you also had the ability of having a hardness slider.
Yeah. That would be nice, and maybe in the future they will. I am just happy that they got the resolution there now, because prior to this, they've just gone up incrementally. But
I know.
now it's really a useful tool, very useful tool.
And the other note that I put on the chat was I copied and pasted Bernie's
Yeah.
reply,
I saw that, yeah.
and he's agreeing with PSA, and that I've had this discussion in person and on the phone with Mercury too.
Yeah,
And Mercury and I are both really frustrated with PSA in specifically, you can see that we're both frustrated exactly for the same reason that, well, first I asked the PSA about dodge and burn, and they said it's not allowed. And I said, well, Ansel Adams did it, and they said, well, he wasn't in the PSA.
yeah,
And then I came up with the very thing that Mercury referred to, and that is that if you had a camera that had a very wide lens, like a f1.4 lens,
yep,
and you took a picture of something, you could blur out the background easily.
sure.
And then if you're using a lens like I have now, which is really light to carry around, but is therefore it's f6.3
Right,
at 600, well, it does not do that.
right.
And so I specifically asked the PSA and Bernie, well, what do you think of that? Can I blur the background myself in post-processing as though it were the camera? And they said, no, you have to buy that other lens.
hmm Yeah, which is very unfortunate. And I'll bet if you asked PSA on the, for instance, the eye tracking,
When you mean eye tracking, are you talking about, this is important, are you meaning tracking the photographer's eye, or you're talking about the subject's eye?
the subject, yeah, the bird.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
It's called
Yeah.
it's called eye focus, and you can have it in tracking.
Right. So you're going to get the key focus of the eyes. Uh, the camera's going to do it. You're not focusing on those eyes. I mean, you may be trying to, but the camera's doing all the work.
I used to do it, you're right, when I had my DSLRs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there is a lot of gray area. If you look at PSA's website, they have a very weak definition of AI on there. And that's part of the reason why I had spoken with Kent and a couple of other people, and I was going to put together some definitions of AI. And the line, like I said, just keeps moving. And because of that, I think I don't know, a couple of years from now, maybe we'll be able to say, here's the line in the sand, or we may never be able to do that.
I'm
Right.
guessing the latter.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like the PSA is not going to budge.
Yeah,
And-
they have some very odd ways of approaching things because they say you can darken and lighten areas of a photograph.
But you cannot. I asked them specifically, does that mean that I can dodge and burn? And they said, absolutely not.
Yeah, so what does that mean? What is the darken and lighten parts of the image?
Yes.
That's dodging and burning to me. So I don't know how else you could do it unless you selected it like we did earlier and did a brightness and contrast change or something like that.
Yeah, well, I saved those emails as well if you ever want to see them, but you understand the gist of it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we've got a long way to go, and PSA is a bit behind the times.
Yeah, and this thing that Bernie is agreeing with is you cannot use post-process blurring with a mask.
Right, right.
And well, what can I say? I stopped entering into competitions in that category because it pissed me off.
Yeah, yeah. And I think
I'm
because,
not trying to make an AI image.
yeah, no, I completely understand. But we are following PSA's rules since we're members of
Oh,
PSA.
well, I'm agreeing. Listen, above all, I want to make it clear so that anybody listening will understand my position. I may wish that the PSA were more flexible about certain editing techniques in post-processing to mimic the camera, because I can't spend $50,000 on an f1.4 lens,
Right, right,
telephoto lens,
right,
and I couldn't carry it either.
right.
But at the same time, I absolutely support and will abide by PSA's rules for our club.
Yeah,
And I am the PSA representative, and I didn't continue arguing with anybody over it. I
right.
just let it drop.
Okay, well, we're at our time, but if anyone else has any other questions or wants to comment on something, please do. And we'll go from there.
Thank you, Eric.
All right,
Thanks, Eric.
you're very welcome.
Thank you, Eric.
We'll see
Always
everyone in a
interesting.
month.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, take care.
Yeah, that was good, Eric.
Good, thanks.